students, we are on the last phylum of animal kingdom, Phylum Chordata. Phylum Chordata. Chordata means having the chord or the notochord. Every chordate has this specific feature of having a so-called notochord. Notochord is a cartilaginous rod-like structure. In most of the chordates, the notochord is replaced by the vertebral column. We also had the notochord in the embryonic stages, but then the notochord got calcified later on and it got converted to the vertebral column that we have today. All the chordates have the notochord at some point in their life cycle. In some of the chordates, the notochord may persist as it is throughout their life, and in some it may be replaced by the vertebral column by calcification. The requirement is that the animal needs to have the notochord at some point in their life cycle. Such animals are called as chordates. Apart from having the notochord, there are three other criteria that every chordate needs to fulfill. So overall, there are four criteria or four characteristic features that every chordate has. We will discuss them one by one. Four characteristic features of every chordate, and these characteristic features may be present at any point in life cycle. So the first criteria is of course the presence of the notochord, which is a cartilaginous, a rod-like structure, may or may not be replaced by vertebral column. Second criteria that needs to be followed by every chordate is the presence of a dorsal single hollow nerve cord. What does it mean, dorsal single hollow nerve cord? The nerve cord that we are referring to over here is equal to the spinal cord, okay, that we have. Let us look at the cross section of spinal cord. So you know the spinal cord, an extension of the brain, it has been cut in a cross section. This is how it looks like. There are two grooves over here and there is an edge-shaped distribution of nerves. If you look right in the center, there will be a cavity. This cavity in the center is called as the central canal. It is filled with a fluid. The fluid is called as cerebrospinal fluid, short formed as CSF. It is used for shock absorption and transportation of materials. This central canal is continuous with the fourth ventricle of the brain. This central canal will run along the length of the spinal cord. It will become broader into the brain and it will become the fourth ventricle, which is a cavity inside the brain. Likewise, there are four such cavities in the brain. They are called as the ventricles of the brain. They are also filled with cerebrospinal fluid meant for shock absorption and transportation of materials. So that means that the spinal cord is hollow in nature. So that explains why the spinal cord is called hollow in nature. Now let us understand why it is single. Our spinal cord is a single spinal cord. Does it have another one like itself paired? No. If you compare it with the nerve cord of the several non-chordates that we have learned so far, for instance in annelids, if you remember, there were two ganglions above the pharynx and they were getting connected below the pharynx and then running longitudinally along the length of their bodies in the form of two paired nerve cords which were connected by transverse nerves. Their nerve cords were ladder-like. They were described as double solid nerve cords. Why were they double? Because they are paired. Why were they solid? Because they were not hollow like ours. And they were ventral nerve cords because they were lying ventrally along their bodies. But our nerve cord, that is the spinal cord, is not ventrally located. It is located dorsally. Where exactly does the spinal cord lies, you know? So we have the vertebral column, right, which is at the dorsal position. The vertebrae, when they stack on top of the other, they create a canal at the back of the vertebrae. So this is, let's say, a vertebra. These are the spines of the vertebra. These are the central bodies, okay, which get stacked on one on top of the other to form the vertebral column. And there is a cavity inside, okay, on the posterior side of the vertebra. This cavity is called as the neural canal. And when the vertebrae are stacked one on top of the other, guess what happens? These cavities are also aligned together to create a continuous column. And guess what passes through that column? The spinal cord. So if you draw a chordate like this, let's say this is a chordate, the notochord will come at the dorsal position, notochord, and the nerve cord will come even at a dorsal position to the notochord. At the ventral position, you have the heart, then you have the intestines, etc. This is the opposite in case of the non-chordates. So that explains why our nerve cord is dorsal, it's single, and it's a hollow nerve cord. Hollow since it has a cavity filled with CSF. Why is it single? Since it is unpaired. And why is it dorsal? Since it lies at dorsal location. Neural canal, spinal cord passes through it. So this is the second criteria that is followed by every chordate. The third criteria followed by every chordate is the presence of so-called pharyngeal gill slits, which are paired. Every chordate has pharyngeal gill slits at the pharyngeal region. Okay, there are slits in the pharynx region. But you will say, how come we don't have them? The thing is, even we had them, but we had them in the embryonic stages. In our fish ancestors, the pharyngeal gill slits remain as they are from the embryonic stage to the adult stage. In the adult stage, they will become nice gills for them. Okay, and in us, the pharyngeal gill slits that we had in the embryonic stages will be covered by this neck region. But then we had them in the embryonic stages, which also explains our evolutionary ancestry with the fishes and the amphibians. If you compare the embryos of fishes, amphibians, reptiles, aves, you will find that they all look very much similar, okay, which also explains that we are closely related to these organisms. So pharyngeal gill slits on both the sides, that is paired pharyngeal gill slits, is a characteristic of every chordate. Next, fourth one is the presence of a post-anal tail. Means what? There has to be anus first, and after that there will be a tail. Okay, so this will be the tail. If you have a pet dog at home, if you lift its tail like that, what you will find over there at that spot will be the anus, isn't it? Right below the tail. Okay, so that's what it is. The anus comes first and the tail comes later. That's called as the post-anal tail. Even we have it. We have the coccyx, the tailbone just after our anus, but it is very redundant or rudimentary. That's why we do not have the tail. But all our other chordate counterparts have them a post-anal tail. If you compare them with the non-chordates, you will find that they do not have a tail. They just have the anus at the posterior most end. So these are the four criteria that are followed by every chordate. So for chordate and a non-chordate, notochord is present for chordate, non-chordate they don't have it. Dorsal hollow single nerve cord is present. In non-chordates they don't have. They have ventral double solid nerve cords. Pharyngeal gill slits are present in chordates, absent in non-chordates, and post-anal tail is present in chordates, absent in non-chordates. For the hemichordates, they had the pharyngeal gill slits. The hemichordates also had dorsal nerve cord and also a ventral nerve cord. So they had two nerve cords. So two of the four features are fulfilled by the hemichordates. So that's why they are hemichordates, half chordates. So these are the four major features that have to be fulfilled by every chordate. Apart from these four features, there are other features that also need to be fulfilled. For example, they are all triploblastic. They all have bilateral symmetry, eucoelomate, organ system level of organization. Circulatory system is closed for majority. There will be rare exceptions. So these are the general characteristics of all chordates. In the next lecture, we will look at the classification of chordates.
In the name of Lord Mahadev, please subscribe.